This is Richard Featherstone from mybibledevotions.com, and I want to provide you with a quick video over one particular practical lesson we can get from 1 Samuel chapter 1. Specifically in this chapter, we can learn 5 different responses to those who are experiencing hardship. In other words, what are 5 different ways that we can react to those around us who are going through a difficult time? And certainly there's more than 5 different ways that you can respond to someone in a bad situation. But I think this first chapter of 1 Samuel provides us with 5 interesting responses. The first one is that we can always mock these people. Not a good thing to do, but so often this is the response that we have. Another way that we can respond to them is really to disregard them, to not really listen to their situation, not really give much emotional attention to it. Another thing we can do is we can kind of flip the situation around and actually use it as an opportunity to think and talk about ourselves. A fourth way is we can actually look at their hardship or the thing that they're going through that's difficult and actually blame them for the situation. And finally, we can do something much better. We can encourage and support that person. So I want you to think about how we can responding to people going through hard times as we look at this first chapter of 1 Samuel. To begin with, let's think about the situation. We know that there is an individual named Elkanah, and he has 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. So we could just put on the brakes right there and recognize that anytime you have 2 spouses, there's going to be problems. So if we've learned anything from Scripture, we learned something from Abraham, we learned something from Jacob, it is that you do not want more than 1 spouse. It's going to cause you a lot of trouble. So I guess we could stop the video there and be done with it. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, because Elkanah does have 2 wives, but it gets worse. He has 1 wife, Hannah, who's probably his favorite, and then there's Peninnah, and unfortunately, Hannah does not have children, but Peninnah does. Now, this is a real stress for Hannah. This is her hardship, and we see from verses 10 and 11 that Hannah was really in a bad situation. She really wanted to have children, and she had gone to God at the tabernacle and just really begged him, Lord, please give me a son, she says. So we know in her particular case, not having children was really hard on her, and she wanted to have kids, but was not able to. So she's going through this particular hardship. Now, how did those around her respond to her as she was going through this difficult situation? Well, first we can see the Peninnah way. And not surprisingly, her rival wasn't too friendly when it came to dealing with Hannah going through hardship. We read in verses 6 and 7 that Peninnah would taunt Hannah. She would make fun of her. Later again, it says that she would taunt her year after year. So Peninnah's response to Hannah's hardship was really to approach it with a mocking attitude. Now, we could probably pause here and say, well, yeah, Peninnah wasn't a very nice person. I don't do that kind of thing when people are going through hard times. And probably most of the time we don't. But now and then, unfortunately, we don't have the best perspective. And sometimes we can get into this situation where we make fun of those who are having a tough time. Maybe we see somebody who's not dressed very well and we kind of joke about their outfit with others. Maybe they're overweight and so we make a snide remark about someone needing to lose some weight. These type of responses are Peninnah responses, and they always do harm and they fit within that mocking area. So let's see if Elkanah did any better. Now, Elkanah has 2 responses, and his first response, as we see in verses 7 and the first part of 8, are to go to the distraught Hannah and to say, why are you crying? Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? Probably not the best way to respond to somebody in this situation. He's not saying, why are you crying? Why aren't you eating? I'm so worried about you. He's saying, you need to knock this off, right? It's not that big of deal that you don't have any children. And so it says, why be downhearted just because you have no children? Wow. Not a really helpful thing to say to Hannah. And in this particular case, we could say that Elkanah is disregarding the situation that Hannah's in, the emotional feelings that she's going through. He is invalidating that and instead saying, hey, you shouldn't be crying. You should be eating. We do this too sometimes, unfortunately, in situations. Maybe a friend of ours tells us that they weren't able to get that bonus they were expecting and hoping for at work. And we respond with something like, well, you really should be thankful that you have a job in these difficult economic times. In that situation, we're not actually validating their feelings or offering them anything to encourage them. We're just really disregarding where they are. Unfortunately, Elkanah makes the situation even worse in the sense that right after this statement, he then says, Hannah, you have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? Wow. Not a good way to encourage your wife by telling her, yeah, you want kids, you don't have any, but don't worry about it, you've got me. He probably meant well here, but Hannah obviously could have responded in a pretty snippy way. She could have said, well, you know what, Elkanah, you also have me, so why did you marry that other woman just because I wasn't having kids? But she didn't respond in that way. And so we can see that Elkanah's situation here is he's responding to the problem that Hannah has by actually flipping it around and focusing on himself. So it becomes an example of self-focus. Now we can do the same thing in situations where we're interacting with people who are going through hardships. And let's continue on with the analogy about the person who wasn't able to get their bonus. If we respond to them, well, you know what? I actually haven't gotten a pay raise in 2.5 years. That's taking their concern and their emotional distress and then pushing it away and talking about ourselves and actually making ourselves the bigger focus of the problem. So Elkanah, unfortunately, doesn't really pass on helping out his wife here. So let's go on to Eli, the high priest. Perhaps he will do better. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't start off that well, because what we learn is that Hannah's not really getting much support from Peninnah. She's not getting support from her husband. So she goes to the tabernacle to pray to God, and she's distressed. She's crying. She's probably looking very downcast. She's praying out, but she's not speaking out loud. She's mouthing the words. Eli's there, and he's looking out, and he sees this woman who's seemingly disheveled and upset, and she's mouthing words, but she's not making any noise. And he just jumps to the conclusion that she's been drinking. And he says in verses 12 and 14, must you come here drunk? Throw away your wine. So he thought she'd been drinking, and he orders her to throw away her alcohol. Love that. So his response to Hannah is really to blame her. She's making a scene. She looks distraught because obviously she's drunk and she's been drinking too much, and now she's come here to the tabernacle to disgrace the tabernacle and God. Now, fortunately, Hannah is able to respond to Eli, and she straightens him out. She's like, "No, I haven't been drinking. I'm very upset. I'm praying to God because I'm making a request of him. And here's where Eli pivots. He moves from blame, thankfully, to saying the following. He says, "Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him." So here in this particular case, he's offering her support and encouragement. And we know this is really powerful in Hannah's situation, because as we read on from verse 17, we learn that she actually is encouraged, and she actually is able to go and eat with the family. So his words of encouragement, "May God of Israel grant the request you've asked of him," really makes a big difference in her life. So we've seen 5 different ways that we can respond to those experiencing hardship. We've seen the Penina approach, which is to make fun of other people in that situation. We've seen the 2 errors of Elkanah. He disregarded Hannah's feelings. He invalidated them. He then turned it to focus in on himself. We then saw the high priest Eli. He starts off with blame, but fortunately he moves on to support and encouragement. So from this first chapter, I would encourage you to think about, how do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be when you meet and interact with people or hear about people who are going through hardships? Do you want to be a Penina or Elkanah, or perhaps an Eli 2.0, a person providing support? Now, you can actually print out this handout if you go to my website, mybibledevotions.com. We're going to go there right now. Once you get to this website, you can simply go up here to 1st and 2nd Samuel. You click on that, and you can scroll through and find the devotion for each one of the chapters. There's a link to the reading where you can read that particular chapter in a variety of different Bible translations. I like New Living Translation. You can check out some of the slides that I provided that are great for learning a few details about that particular chapter. And then here at this, you can click on it. You can then pull up this Google drawing. And if you'd like, you come up here to File, Print Settings, and Preview is my recommendation. You can see what it will look like when you print it out. You can print it out. Maybe you want to put this somewhere in your house or keep track of it to remind yourself, hey, I don't want to be a Penina or an Elkanah. I want to be an Eli 2.0. So also, if you're at the site, feel free to check out my blog. I encourage people to go up here to the forum. Once you get into the forum, you can actually check out the 1 Samuel conversations. In order to participate in this, you'll want to log in. It's totally free to be a member. And the only reason I make it a members only area is it keeps a lot of spam out, and I keep out people who just want to cause trouble. This is not an area that I intend to be a place that people can get angry at each other and say mean things. Rather, I don't want people to be Peninas in there, as it were. I want people to offer an Eli 2.0 as we have great conversations. So if you get a chance, check out the website and explore it a little bit. I've appreciated spending some time in 1 Samuel. I hope you're enjoying it as well. And I hope that you continue on with more of the devotions and give me some feedback as you're able. God bless.